Megan, good evening. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, Sean?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for carving some time out this evening to sit down with me and talk about your experience inside of the program. So, just before we kind of get started, just want to manage expectations. Won't take long at all. I want to just ask you a handful of questions in the hope that it can potentially help someone who is struggling with the things that you were before we started working with one another. So, yeah, before we dive on in, why don't you just kind of share with everybody who you are and what it is you do?
Yes, so I'm Megan Janice. I'm an online nutrition and fitness coach for women. And I help women build a lean, fit, strong body and show them how they can easily maintain it as a lifestyle. And in particular, show them how to do that, eating more food and doing shorter but higher quality workouts.
Beautiful. And we met quite a while ago now in London, but you and I met when I spoke at an in-person event, another coach's kind of mastermind. So I'd love you to kind of cast your mind back to that time and kind of, yeah, have me and anyone who's watching kind of understand what your biggest challenge was or frustration before kind of, yeah, starting to work with us.
Yeah, so I think we met it was kind of serendipitous because I was just having changes happen in my business, which is that I really grew and scaled my business to, kind of first consistent 20K and then consistent 30K and up to as much as 40 and 50K months in 2024. Both via just organic content and organic marketing that I do, especially then, was doing mostly on Instagram, but also some on YouTube. But I had also grown relying somewhat heavily on kind of affiliate marketing, which it just kind of unfolded naturally because I tend to work with a lot of women who are coaches themselves, and they would really fit the kind of ideal avatar of like being very diet obsessed, but
Mhm.
then wondering why they weren't toned. And then they would, hear my message, come into the program, be mind blown, get the exact kind of ideal transformation, and then like sing my praises. And so a couple of these women, it ended up just evolving naturally into kind of like, well, why don't we turn this into kind of like an affiliate partnership where since you did the program, you love the results, you really believe in the mission, like, why don't you promote? And I kind of came up with different negotiations with different clients.
Mhm.
But then, so right when I met you, Sean, things were kind of changing in that way where some of them I was deciding I didn't want to continue anymore. Because one in particular, we had initially set out like 2 years previous where it was like, oh, we'll just split it 50-50, which at the time was great because I was running the business by myself. But then as the business grew, I started to bring on team members and I was like, this 50-50 isn't really working anymore now with my margins. And then some others did the program and had a great time, but they weren't necessarily the type to want to be in the program like forever. And they were like, hey, I had a great transformation and kind of like moving on with my life now. So it just kind of fizzled out for that reason. So essentially, I was at a point where I was realizing like, okay, one of the avenues that I've used to help bring in a lot of people is kind of coming to an end. So I need to understand other means for bringing in leads, bringing in sales. And earlier that year, I'd kind of been introduced to, like new follower ads and setting as a way of doing your own outbound and having like an automated source of people coming to your page.
Mhm.
Um, and I mean, to be fair, I never really gave it like a full-hearted attempt because everything else was going so well. So I
Mhm.
had dabbled in it a bit and understood the concept, but felt kind of frustrated around like I don't fully understand how this all comes together. Um, and also just that I hadn't really needed to leverage it. But by the time I was meeting you, I was like, I want to understand this more. And then when you and I were talking, you just explained it in a way that made it more clear to me how it can work
Mhm.
and that it can, be really lucrative and dependable.
Mhm.
So that's just what made me interested in being like, okay, well, why don't I just work with you and you show me like your way of using that lead gen system?
Mhm. And I remember we obviously spent a lot of time together on that day, at that in-person event, and I was just kind of sharing with you what we do. Like, here's what works for us. So obviously you just mentioned kind of the point you were at. You were really interested in kind of learning this new modality of yeah, bringing leads to your business. But there's hundreds of coaches. You've been in mentorships before, but what made you kind of decide to hire me?
Yeah, I think you just explained it in a way that really simplified it for me and answered some confusion that I felt around the process. I think a big thing was like you literally were going to Instagram and showing me like this lead, ended up converting and like
Mhm.
paying X amount or whatever. And I remember what stood out to me was that because this was what I felt kind of confused about, or one of the things I felt confused about with generating leads via new follower ads and setting was kind of being like, if your avatar is not somebody who would obviously have a certain kind of profile on Instagram, I mean, how do you really know? How can you guess the lead quality?
Mhm.
Um, and so it kind of made me be like, I feel like this only works if it's like, I work specifically with coaches and it's obvious that they have like a coaching page, right?
Mhm.
But then you would be like, show me like, no, like this person has like no followers, just like some random profile picture, and they ended up paying 8 grand or whatever it was.
Mhm.
That kind of made me realize like, oh, okay, I have not been really leveraging this as well as I could be, and making me realize like, oh, there's probably a lot of opportunity that I'm missing out on. And yeah, I think I just liked how you broke it down. And I'm kind of the type that I would always rather just pay to get like the hands-on guidance rather
Mhm.
than kind of like try to piece it together. So you just kind of convinced me. I was like, all right, just show me how to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And then obviously you decided, okay, let's do this. Let's start working together. Within the kind of first few weeks, you were very kind of complimentary of the communication that you got from me. So, yeah, what kind of stood out when it came to the communication as opposed to the other programs you've done?
I think definitely just like speed of response really kind of shocked me
Mhm.
because, and like, it's not that I expect, I understand that as the head coach and business owner, like there's so many things. So it's not really that I expect a super fast response. But I was just really impressed by that. And that really stood out to me because yes, I have worked with many different business mentors before and got used to kind of like not always, but I feel like a lot of people really kind of give the bare minimum.
Mhm.
Because I think some people can kind of ride on their fame essentially. And, you're paying to have access to like the person. And it's not that it's not worthwhile or anything, but, they say like you will get X amount of calls, X amount of whatever in the program. And like that's exactly what you get, no more, no less kind of thing. Um, so it just really exceeded my expectations in that way, where I was like, oh, like I say, like, hey, I'm not sure about this, or I have a question, and like you're responding like almost immediately,
Mhm.
and then yeah, like really giving a thorough response, checking in a lot. Um, so I just felt very attended to, and also just felt like you really cared about seeing me win a lot, which was really nice. Like you were really willing to get into like the nitty gritty details and like really wanted to see that it would work for me. So that was just a nice feeling as opposed to kind of just feeling like you're in this group and like, yeah, get your questions answered like 48 hours later kind of thing.
Yeah. I often think so many people spend so much time on the kind of the sales, the marketing, and that's the part of the
Hmm.
business that they abandon is the kind of the delivery. Because without you
Yes.
and without everyone else inside of the program, I wouldn't have a business. And a lot of
Hmm.
the time, we're often focused on, okay, let's get new clients when we've already got people that have decided to invest in us. And often those people are more likely to spend more money with us if we deliver the right service. So yeah, it's a huge compliment. So I appreciate you sharing that. That being said, you did refer over a handful of people. So I'm very curious to know kind of what made you kind of think that I was the right person to help those people too.
Um, just because you are, well, it's a mix of having very clear action steps. And it's very kind of like you either ticked the boxes or you didn't. And if you're not getting results, it's probably because you didn't tick the boxes or you're not getting enough feedback or whatnot.
Mm.
Um, because yeah, that was another thing that just it was really eye-opening because you really helped me get my hands dirty and kind of like get in there and be like, because you'd say like, okay, 100 touch points a day. And it's funny because you hear that and you think like, oh yeah, yeah, sure, whatever. But then if you actually go in your DMs and you're like, I'm going to send 100 messages, it really opens your eyes to like, wow, okay, that's a lot of messages.
Hmm.
And you would just say like, trust me, send 100 a day and like you'll see that people will come through. And I still remember this was like the biggest kind of like mind-blowing thing because I started to just like be like, okay, like literally just get your hands dirty and like, yeah, eventually you can get a setter to do that because it is time consuming. But I was like, I
Yeah.
just want to understand it for myself at least somewhat before passing it off.
Hmm.
Um, but I did that and it was the exact same thing where it was like somebody who's following me had like really generic, didn't seem in any type of way. And like I'd already sent her a couple of messages. So even also understanding that, like the need to follow up and whatever. But
Hmm.
I kept seeing like going through my stories and messaging those people. And I was like, see, she keeps looking at my stories. And then finally it was like the sixth time maybe I like messaged her. And then all of a sudden she started responding and we got into like a whole conversation. Um, and I don't know if you had encouraged me to raise my prices or what had happened, or maybe you like affirmed it for me.
Hmm.
But to this day, this was like the biggest like upfront cash collected from one person that I ever got. And
Hmm.
then she was just really like, okay, yeah, so like how can I pay you? And like we got on the call and she paid 7K in full, no
Hmm.
hesitation. And I was like over the moon. I was like, oh my God, that's like insane. Like
I remember.
I
And
never,
7,400, right?
yeah.
$7,400, was it?
No, I think it just wasn't. Oh, I
Mhm.
ended up having another person who paid that much.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, that you also like gave me some tips around. That person was more inbound, but
Yeah.
I still ended up needing some coaching around certain things. But the
Mm.
person who paid, yeah, the 7K just in one shot, like it was just proof of what you had showed me a couple months earlier around like sometimes it's just like some like you can't tell by their profile. You can only tell by talking to them and you gotta follow up and like if you just send all these messages, like some people will come through. And yeah, I just hadn't really ever been disciplined or not. Like I kind of knew I needed to do these things, but I think it was just hearing you like affirm it so much of like just do these damn steps. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, okay, I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna do it. Like, come on. And
Mm.
then actually having the payoff from it. So,
Yeah.
so going back to the original question of why I referred people over, it was just because I was like, I know that this will work. Like, you have to obviously be willing to like put in the effort, and it does take like hustle, or at least especially once you get a team and whatever, like
Mm.
then less. Um, but for somebody just starting out, and that was the people I referred over. I was like, hey, if you like literally know you want to be a coach, but you don't know where to start, like this is the guy who's not only gonna tell you like the specific, exact, measurable steps to be taking, but
Mhm.
then the other big thing was just knowing how responsive and how much like you want your clients to win, how attentive you were. I was like, I've worked with lots of people, also paid similar prices, if not quite a bit more, and
Mhm.
not gotten nearly as much attention. So it just felt good for that combination of reasons to be like, go with this guy. Don't trust these other Instagram coaches. Like I can vouch for this one.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. I remember several stories. You're like, oh, one day you were walking to the gym and you said, oh, I've just sent a few messages, and you'd finished the gym and you'd came back and you'd had, oh, I've got a call booked in, and then I think that night you'd closed that person in like 72 hours or something. I remember there's like moments that stick out for me, and yeah, I think one thing you said to me is I kind of opened your eyes up to like what's actually required. And the only reason I was able to kind of give you that quick support, that quick response time is because we have the systems in place that allow me to do that. There's an appointment setter sending the messages, etc. So yeah,
Mhm.
funny enough, one of the girls you referred over to, Callie, I spoke to today, and she's quit her job, which is crazy because that was the goal she wants to accomplish. So yeah, thank you for that.
So good. Yeah. And I follow her because she's also a fitness person. And I see her like getting clients and stuff. So I'm like, that's amazing.
Yeah, she's crushing it. So yeah, in terms of yourself then, You mentioned you've been through plenty of programs and you'll continue to work with other coaches because I know you're committed to the business and investing in yourself. What would you say kind of has been, yeah, the biggest kind of breakthrough that you've had since our time working together?
I think probably the biggest thing, because also I'm remembering the call you did around all the data that you had of what you do with your setter and like how you get X amount of sales and just like this really specific numbers. And I think this is just what I really appreciate about you and the program and what I learned was like you shouldn't be kind of getting in this victim mindset of like, I don't know, I tried it, it doesn't work. I don't know why it's not working. And I've definitely tended towards that sometimes in the past. Um, Versus it's like, okay, well, why is not like what's actually happening and actually having objective data to look at.
Mm,
And most of the time, if it's not working, it's like you're literally it's just a shortage of volume
yeah,
and consistency and effort. It's like if you were sending enough messages consistently, you'd be getting sales.
yeah,
Is kind of really so yeah, I mean, and I know like Ramosi and a lot of those people like kind of talk about this too. It's just like a lot of people are just not doing enough and
mm,
like they think they're putting in so much effort, but it's like you still need to do probably like 10 times more than what you're doing.
yeah,
So just kind of it helps to understand what it takes and that like, hey, if you do show up and you do the reps, like you will get the payoff, which is very worth it.
yeah. Yeah, and I think you're right. I think so many people are kind of looking for new when they know exactly what it is they need to do. They don't need new, they need more. And sometimes, it helps to just being very kind of objective with the data because the data doesn't lie. It's like, well, how many messages have you sent? Or, how many people have you had come into your world? Okay, well, we're able to kind of triage and then look at, okay, well, there's the problem. And yeah, when you're working
Mhm.
kind of objectively, there's no kind of room for uncertainty. It's like this is the problem 100%. So yeah, I I recall you finding that session in of itself really, really valuable. I think when we went through the whole, okay, here's how we had a record month, here's how many messages we sent, here's how much we spent on ad spend. Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
So you kind of touched on this, but I will ask it then. Aside from what you have mentioned, what would you say that kind of, yeah, in comparison to the programs you've done in the past, how has my program been different, aside from what you have mentioned?
Um, mm, yeah, I think just around, like I said, definitely the level of support, the speed
Mhm.
of reply, the care I felt as well that you actually like really wanted to see us win and you were like invested in and you're like, you'd be like, how did that call go? Like you really wanted to know. And when it did, you know, turn into a sale or whatever, you're like almost more excited than I was. So that always just feels really good.
Yeah.
And I think just being kind of like what's the word? Just showing up and really being willing to do the steps, be super persistent, consistent. And yeah, that like it is pretty methodical. Like you
Mhm.
don't need to let your emotions dictate things.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's actually something else I'm realizing now talking about this. You're very like calm and collected. I'm quite emotional and like I can struggle with that in business because it can be up and down. And when it's down, sometimes I can like get a little panicky and be like, I have to change everything. And I think it's having somebody who's quite grounded and logical about things. It's
Yeah.
always a good reminder to be like, just like keep doing the things and know that like this is just part of business. It's like up and down and keep going. So I think just the combination of calm logic, being data driven and being willing to put in the work to complete the reps necessary. And then just the the level of support and care, like it just
Yeah.
makes it a good combination.
Yeah. I appreciate you saying that. I always say, and I remember one of our calls, I was saying, if in doubt, zoom out. if you're having a bit of a bad day, like zoom out. Is it a bad week? Is it a bad month? No, it's just a bad day, having a tough time. And I often do think, right, we're emotional creatures, and I like the phrase running a coaching business is simple, often complicated by the human brain. And we oftentimes are the very thing that's in the way of us getting to where we want to get to. And don't get me wrong, I struggle with this myself. I never claim to try and be perfect. And I think that's kind of brings it back to what you mentioned before. I want to see everybody win. Of course, I think any good coach wants to see their clients win, but I believe I'm in the trenches with you all. Like everything I teach, I'm not one of those coaches who are like, oh yeah, let me teach you this thing that has never worked for me. I'm like, here's what works for me. I know it works because it's working for us and all of these other clients. So yeah, I feel like I'm in the trenches with everybody. It's like, hey, we've just done this thing. This is what's working right now. Go and roll it out. As opposed to, I think it was yourself or perhaps Jake who had asked me about a certain type of lead acquisition. And straight away, I was just like, I've never done that before. I'm not going to sit here and pretend to know because there are too many people out there over promising and under delivering. And for me, yeah, the delivery part, as I said before, is kind of the part that most coaches miss out. So yeah, appreciate the feedback. Final
Yeah.
question. Yeah, final question I'll ask. And I'll let you enjoy your afternoon in Canada. I know that we kind of speak to a lot of coaches, life coaches, career coaches, fitness coaches, loads of different types of coaches. And of course, we work with plenty of different types of coaches because what we teach works irrespective of the niche. But kind of, what would you say to anybody that is on the fence about kind of working with us and joining the program?
Yeah, I would just say that, you have the support you need, you have all the resources you need. You definitely do need to be willing to show up, be transparent, ask for help, put in the work. But I mean, as long as you're willing to show up and you're really like dedicated to this, right? Like you don't see it as just like, oh, my little like side coaching hustle. Like I really do think, especially to get a coaching business going,
Mhm.
let alone scaled up. I mean, it really does require a full-time effort. And that doesn't mean like 16-hour days or anything, but like, giving it like a good like Monday to Friday, daytime effort.
Mhm.
But as long as that's what you want, I mean, this program gives you what you need. And like I said, I really think it's much higher value than so many other programs out there that charge a very similar price, if not significantly more,
Mhm.
but give a lot less. So it's kind of like you're most likely going to invest in some sort of program, and I've done a lot of them, and I can just really vouch for this one. So that's the way I see it is I'm like, if you know you're serious about a business, you're going to invest in a mentor anyways, like because you want to be smart where you're putting your money because there are a lot of not so great coaches and programs out there. So can
Mhm.
definitely vouch for this one.
Amazing. And where can people find you, Megan, if they want to kind of get in touch with you?
Yeah, so on Instagram, I'm Megan underscore nomadic fitness, and then it's also the same on YouTube.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, and it's been a pleasure working with you. Speak to you soon.
Of course. Thank you, Sean.